All right, Paul. Welcome to the Common Good Podcast. So excited that you're with us today. And boy, it's going to be a special day on this magical Thursday, August 18th, because Paul Wallace, the man, the legend, the astrophysicist, the professor, the man with a new office, and the man who can give us a tour of an observatory, a planetary observatory. My gosh, I mean, it's just these are the kinds of things that a child like me only dreamed of.
Yeah,
like this could be made possible, Paul.
And the building is kind of like a little little science, little astronomy museum. It's just got some little things in it here and there that are really, really lovely. I feel like I work in a little wonderland here.
All right. So, Paul, for people that don't remember all of your goodness, not only are you a birder, not only are you a man of, renowned faith and pastoral ability, you're an astrophysicist. You're also a professor at Agnes Scott College in Decatur.
That's right.
I think in the 10 years we've been doing this, that may be the first time I've gotten the name of the fine institution correct. I didn't call it Women's College.
I was waiting for it.
Well, thank you for being patient with me, Paul. It's been, it's been a few years for me to get it right. Okay, so tell us about all this. As an well, first of all, let's do the obligatory check-in. Rained last night here in Minneapolis. The yards are greening up. Summer continues to be glorious. How are things in Decatur, which is just outside of Atlanta, Georgia?
Lots of rain. Pretty cool this week. We had rain last night too. Cloudy right now, solid cloud cover. We've had so much rain. Usually by this point in the year, our lawns are just like wilted and brown, but they continue to just grow. It's just, I'm ready to stop mowing the lawn and pulling up, trimming and all that.
Summer will leave you soon, and you'll be back to all of your duties at Agnes Scott College.
True. Right. Oh, by the way, we had a very important guest, a very special guest in Atlanta yesterday. We had Rudy. Rudy showed up.
Down
at the Fulton County Courthouse is a few miles away.
I don't know if it's current or former lawyer to the twice impeached and federally searched former president. Had to appear before the good people of Georgia and answer some questions about his behavior.
How far we have fallen. My goodness.
I was thinking about him yesterday, which I'm not want to do. And what I just couldn't get out of my mind was that scene from the most recent movie, the Borat movie. I don't know if you've seen this one, where he's with a young lady in the hotel room. It just the man, what heights he has fallen from back in the 2001 stage when people thought he was America's mayor.
On top of the world 20 years ago.
I mean, just
absolutely on top of the world.
And just won't quit. The man just won't stop being a troublemaker at his age. Which, in one sense, you think, well, look, I mean, good for people, using their later years, for what they want. You just wish the guy would want something other than this. This is just absolute bonkers. Well, we'd love to know where you're coming from.
Bonkers is the word for sure.
We'd love to know where you're listening from and what you observe from your space, your office, your laboratory. All right, so you've had to put up with the Rudy circus, which is probably not done. I'm guessing that a whole cast of characters are going to be hauled in front of the grand jury there, and in Georgia. But tell us about this observatory that you've got going on. I've been, we've been teasing it for weeks here on the podcast, and we've just been waiting for it. And I know for people on only the audio version of the podcast are thinking, how are we gonna experience an observatory when we can't observe it? Well, you can go watch the live stream, of course, over on our YouTube channel, or we'll describe it for you.
We'll describe it for you, and I'll give you a little walking tour of it here. How about that?
Just unbelievable. All right, set the context for us. What is this?
Right, first, I'll take you outside, okay?
All right.
Take you outside.
Boy, Paul is on his phone too, which just to give people a feel of this. I mean, this is how advanced we've become. Sure, sometimes we can't get the intro music to start, which we did today, but then Paul can actually even take us on a little journey. At least we hope. Now I'm wondering if you're going to pop outside, Paul, and drop off of your Wi-Fi, but seems to be holding steady so far. Okay, so your office is in another building. And now
Yes,
you've
I'm in the
crossed a
building.
courtyard. All right.
Yeah, and I am going to show you. I can't go outside. I discovered I can't go outside, but basically it's an observatory. We have 3 faculty offices here, classroom. I'll take you back. Let me turn this around so I can see it. Can I do that?
I
Let me just
think
do it this
maybe
way.
you
Okay,
can
so
touch that button. Is there not a button there that tells you which camera? I think there's a drop down menu. Oh, here we are. Like even people coaching deals. You should call one of your children and say, "Hey, can you talk me through how to do this?" Because that seems, what men of our age do. But there should be like in the bottom, Paul, where it says your pics. You see a little picture down there in your camera. It should
yeah.
have your camera down there. Well, that's a
Oh,
very
I
fancy
see.
place. You probably here's a question I'm going to have
Here we
for
go.
you.
Here we go. Now,
Well, I've
you
lost you.
can.
We've lost you completely.
Well, maybe this isn't going to work.
It's like an observatory. Has looked into a big black hole. There's just a
Are you getting nothing at all?
now I've got nothing at all. You know
How
what it
about
feels
now?
like? There, not now. We got you for a minute there. It was like
Okay.
a
All right. Well, sorry for everybody. This is my this is my hallway here.
nice.
Okay.
This is awesome.
We have you can't if you're mathematically oriented, you'll see that we have binary numbers in the floor
Oh my gosh!
starting with
Seriously,
and that totally nerdy. Down here at my feet,
so
there's
wonderfully
1,
nerdy. Just
2,
great.
3, 4, all the way up to about 15, and then it repeats. So we've got binary numbers in the floor here.
I've got binary numbers in the floor.
Numbers in the floor. Yeah,
There's a
and so this is the hallway where the offices are, and then
there's a phrase I've never heard. We
here.
have binary numbers in the
Yeah.
floor.
We got more than that in the floor, though. Can you? Am I coming through?
You're coming through, baby. This is yeah. I mean, I
Okay,
feel
so
like we're
this is the entrance to the
look at that.
planetarium here.
The
So that's the entrance to.
Delafield
But in the floor,
Planetarium.
Delafield Planet. We'll go in there in a second. But look in the floor out here. Okay, see the big arc, the big blue arc? That's the
Yes.
sun, and
Okay.
the 4 inner planets right there. See the little dots right there?
Fantastic, you guys.
We have planets in the floor. So these are the 4 inner planets, and that's the arc of the sun. And there's Jupiter. There's Saturn. We don't have the rings of Saturn, unfortunately. Then we have Uranus, your favorite planet.
Thank you, because I am a 12-year-old.
Neptune. And look out here. Look out here, right here.
Okay.
We have Pluto. There's Pluto.
Did you have anything to do, Paul, with it when they were designing this building? That somebody
No,
was
this
going
was
to lay
all
the
here when I
tiles?
went. This is all here when I came here 10 years ago. Here's the planetarium. So here's what my daughter calls the Constellation Room.
Incredible. Look at this place. All
Control.
right, so it looks like, I mean, all these places look to me like a NASA, control center. The
Yeah,
chairs,
right.
the tables, the telescopes, the open, curvy sky.
And there's the big old dome up there. And so anyway, this is what my 13-year-old calls the Constellation Room.
So what happened? Okay, can you go back to that ceiling again? Can you show us that ceiling? I'd love to ask you about this. All right, so there's a telescope right there. Is that what someone would look?
No,
again, I've never been to an observatory, so I'm.
This is a planetarium. Okay, Doug, this is a planetarium,
which is different than an observatory.
Yes, this is where they project all the stars up onto the dome.
I see.
That's a projector right there.
I see.
Okay, and it's controlled from this computer right here. And
are they taking that? Does that feed come from a telescope that's pointed at the sky?
No. It's just completely simulated. Yeah, and so that projector projects the stars up on the dome, which is a huge onion-colored.
Sure.
Probably
Gotcha.
70-foot dome or something.
I thought that was something that opened up and that was a telescope that pointed through.
No, I'll show you that in just a minute. We got that.
All right.
Okay. So back out in the main hall here. Oh, we have our little coin black hole here. These little things.
A place to collect coins.
That's right. Then we have our nice Hubble pictures on the walls. I'll take you this way back through the classroom. This is where I teach one of my classes right here.
It's pretty
Hey,
amazing,
look at
Paul.
this. Look at what I got that you don't have. I've
All,
got
all of it.
yeah, but especially this. You know what this is?
A
That's a
globe?
Venus globe. It's a
Oh my
Venus globe.
goodness.
I know.
How cool is
We've got
that?
a Mars globe too. It's
There's
got
a
all
V.
the great
Of course, I never even thought
features.
there'd be a Venus globe. Of course, there's a Venus
I
globe.
know. I know. Exactly. So this is the front entrance to the observatory here,
Hey,
and
have
come
they been
around
all the
this
way
way.
around Venus? Do we know all the sides, or are they kind of just doing some educated
No, no,
guesswork?
we know all this.
Okay.
We we know the whole thing. Now we're going up the stairs
This
here.
is so great. Now you're in a echoey center as we walk up to an
Yeah.
observatory.
So we've got a few flights of stairs here up to the telescope.
Hey, Paul, why would a college like Agnes Scott College outside of Decatur, Illinois, why would they invest in something, the sky, astrophysics, an observatory and all? Because I've been to a lot of colleges. I've rarely seen one other than our big university here that I know of that has an observatory.
Yeah, it was a guy named Candler of all things who built it back in
Oh,
1940.
really?
Tell you more about that in a second. But
Okay.
here is the actual telescope.
Wow, Paul, this is where you work. This is unbelievable. Okay, this thing looks
So
just
it's
like, yeah, I mean, it's like if you imagined a sort of 1960s version of what they thought a future laser was going to
exactly
look like, that's what this
yeah. So
is.
now I'm inside the big dome and see that big. There's a place where it opens up right there,
Looks
and
like a huge metal zipper that's going to open up. So what does it take to, I'm not
yeah.
asking you to open it now, of course, but what does it take to open that? Is that a whole crew? Is that just a switch on the wall?
No, it's just a switch, and it's a 30-inch telescope.
Okay,
So
so
it's
talk about what that is. 30 in what's 30 inches? The lens or something?
the
What's
diameter. It's essentially a big cylinder, right? It's like a long cylinder shape, and the 30 inches is the diameter of that cylinder.
because that telescope we're looking at with all of its metal and that thing is how big? Is that 12 feet long? What 4 or 5 feet wide?
I'd say 10. I'd say 10.
You I can't see
And
the
then
proportion without you, but you can't get your arms around that thing like it's bigger around than you could ever put your arms around.
let's see. No, I'm trying to get it set up where you can see me with it behind me, but I really
Yeah.
can't do that very well. Suffice it to say that the top of that telescope is probably about 15 feet above the floor.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. It's just gigantic.
Yeah.
How old is that telescope? How long have you had that one there at the observatory at Agnes?
19, I want to say 39 or 40, but it still works. It still works great.
1939 or 40. This telescope. And
Yeah.
okay, so who fixes that thing when trouble comes? I don't know. Something happens. It gets shaken or
We
there's got to
have
be.
I'm heading downstairs, better reception down there. We have an expert who lives in town. We have basically an endowed, we have a pile of money they gave us that we pay for out of it. But there's a fellow in town who, there's not too many of them around. But
That's what I was
who
going to
can,
ask. Those must be people that are in pretty high demand for you. Like, hey, don't let that guy move, and make sure he's eating a
yeah,
fiber-filled diet on a regular basis,
yeah,
because the number of people who I would imagine could fix a 1939, 1940 vintage planetary telescope
yeah,
just can't be uh,
yeah.
is probably not the most easy to find character in the whole deal. Well, look at this. Nice light.
That's
You got
yeah. So this is my actual. Again, this is we're back to the hallway with the binary numbers, and this is my office
how,
here.
how many colleagues do you have around the country as a college professor and astrophysicist that do your same kind of work and have observatories? Like what's your cluster of people? What size is that?
Oh God. Let me
Hundreds,
think.
dozens? Like when you all have a meeting, does somebody have to call ahead to get a room, or can you just pretty much count on it's gonna work out fine?
You mean when we have a meeting? You say?
Yeah, like if you got all the
Uh,
people that do what you do, that are college professors, have an observatory, you get to take people on tours of their telescopes. How many people in the country do this kind of thing that you do?
Probably a few hundred, a couple hundred
Really?
maybe. Yeah.
I shouldn't be so amazed at this. It just amazes me. It just amazes me. It's so cool. Uh, all
It is
right,
cool. It is cool.
just remind us why in 1940 the Chandler family, who by the way, if people know, I don't know, higher education in the Georgia area, Atlanta area, Chandler's a big name. I think there's a theology school named after the person as well. Is that
Yeah.
right? It's Chandler
Yeah.
School of
Well, yeah.
Theology.
The name Candler is on pretty much everything
Oh,
around
Candler,
here.
not
In
Chandler.
fact,
Thank you for that. One of my Dr.
the
Oz
road right behind,
grocery store.
the road right behind me here is Candler Road, and it runs all the way down to South DeKalb County. It runs a long way. It's a major road. Candler's everywhere. It's part of the Coca-Cola, uh, you know.
Oh,
But the telescope was
part of the Coca-Cola people. Huh. Interesting. Okay.
yeah, that and Woodruff. The two names Candler and Woodruff
Oh yeah.
are Coke money, and it's half the state of Georgia is built on Coke money.
And this is not Koch as in the Koch brothers that some people know from political funding fame.
That's
This
right.
is
That's right.
that's spelled with a K. This is the people that had the secret sauce or
Yeah,
the secret recipe for their soft drink that they couldn't all be on an airplane
that's right.
together. I didn't even know if that
That's
was
right.
true, but those legends when I was a kid, it was so secret that people who knew, like 12 people knew the secret to Coca-Cola and they couldn't all fly in the same airplane together, was what I heard about.
Yeah.
Um, all right.
So
So
one of
those
these
people,
Candlers went to Harvard and got a PhD in astrophysics, and came back
uh,
down and wanted to teach down here. And I'm not sure where the money originally came from, other than his family or something like that. But William Candler uh, built the place, and that was in 39 or 40. I can't remember which date exactly, but ever since then, Agnes Scott has. And at the time, it was actually the largest telescope in the southeast. Um,
Agnes Scott is
for
a women's college. Um,
yeah,
was it always that way?
yep, it's been that way since it started,
I don't know a
and
lot
it
about
still
the
is.
history of Georgia in the 1940s, but the idea that you wanted to educate women at the college level and give them an astrophysics degree. So put the funded astrophysics professor and observatory there. I don't know. That feels like it was a real step forward, real progressive kind of move. Is that accurate to say?
I think it probably was, but remember that Atlanta's always been a bit more progressive than the rest of the state. Um, but yeah, I think it was a
Right. That
pretty
just
radical
feels
move.
more progressive than the country. Like that feels more progressive than NASA because I watched those movies about when we went to the moon and they made the women just like carry papers around. That was in the
Yeah, right.
1960s. So they're
Yeah, yeah.
training up.
No, you're right. That is a pretty that is and was a pretty radical thing. Um, so yeah, we graduate students who go on to get PhDs and do science the rest of their lives. So
It's really great. Well, thanks for the tour. We've been waiting on it. Congratulations on the new job role that you have that comes with an observatory. I've rarely had real jobs where I had to negotiate, but I've never thought that I would be saying in my negotiations like, so this position, what are we thinking about for vacation? And can I use the photocopier machine for personal copies if I need to get something? And does it come with an observatory? Is that a part of the deal? But that's just the starry life. Get the pun
yeah,
of
yeah.
astrophysicist Paul Wallace.
I'm not complaining. It kind of just fell in my lap because somebody, like I mentioned 2 weeks ago, the Great Resignation affected colleges as much as any other place,
Yeah.
and we had a couple leave the department, and this office just happened to be opened up, and I was the next one in line for it. So
Well,
here I am.
like a shooting star, my friend. Yeah, are you? All
Boom.
right. Hey, Paul, I was thinking today because there's big news about Artemis 1, which is this
Yeah,
rocket that NASA has put together to get back to the moon. And I feel like, and it's been 10 years since they had any project working on this. And
yep,
I feel like you and I were talking about NASA moving away from doing their own lunar trips and putting all of it to private industry that ultimately has become SpaceX and the other projects. Were we talking about that 10 years ago? Like, have you
I
and
don't
I been
remember.
having, have we been doing podcasty things together or radio show? Because remember when I had the radio show and you'd be the guest on the radio show on AM 950
Yeah, I
Progressive
don't
Voice of
think
Minnesota?
have you been doing it 10 years
Well,
already?
that's what I was going to ask you. I have forgotten such things. I don't know. It's 2020. Was it 2012 that we were? Is it possible? Okay, maybe not.
I don't
Um,
think so.
but somewhere along the line, I've been grousing, and I remember with you because very few other people in my life tolerate my grousing about NASA not sending people to the moon, and worried about the space station and worried about Mars, and have been saying why we went to the moon in 1972. What, first time in 1969, 68,
Yeah,
69,
69.
and then just kind of gave up on the moon. And you've always been a big advocate of the moon. You're a big Moonie, and
Yep.
now we're going back to the moon in a big way. Like somehow, I don't know if it's the new director of NASA or the Congress or somebody, but decided that, hey, us not being on the moon because China is going to go to the dark side of the moon, Pink Floyd reference. And if we don't have a presence on the moon, we're sort of missing out on the best part of
Yeah.
space. I mean, there
Yeah.
might be other
Well,
things that are great too, but boy, the moon seems smart.
it's a gift, right? It's right there. It's just quarter of a million miles away, right there, just waiting for us. Um, yeah. So we've actually been planning to do this for, I don't know, a couple few administrations. Um, and it's been slowed down a little bit by changes in administration and changes in vision, I guess. But the idea of going to the moon and using it as a sort of going and staying, this time, remaining longer. I don't know how long they're planning on staying. If they're trying to keep a colony occupied continuously for a year or more, like they do the space station. Eventually, they would be doing something like that. But the idea is to go and stay longer and investigate uh, what it would require to make that a launching place for Mars.
Yes. Well, that is that seems like the big question is, or the big project is the little bit of news footage that I've heard about this is that they really do want to use this as staging
Yeah,
for getting to Mars. Personally, I
a lot,
think
a lot cheaper. It's a lot cheaper to launch from the moon than it is to launch from Earth.
isn't that great? Cheaper to have people live there and like build a colony there because you're already what is a quarter of a million
Over
miles.
over time, it's cheaper. Let's put it that way.
It's a long term investment. Uh,
Yeah, it's a long term investment.
Setting aside the constant critiques that have been around, like why are we worrying about space when we have enough to do on the ground here? So just legitimate question. I think there's real answers for it. So setting that one aside, I feel like this is really going to capture the imagination of people in the on Earth. Even more so than people living in the space station. Somehow living
Absolutely.
inside of something, I don't know, a big container circling the Earth is cool, but feels, I don't know, different. Having a physical presence on the moon, like being able to look up at the moon and thinking there's somebody on there right
Mhm.
now, a
Yeah.
person is sitting on that thing.
Yep.
Man, that
It's a
is so
totally
great.
different psychological effect to think of that, and also it's just a whole lot further away. I mean, the people on the space station are maybe you know, I don't know how many miles overhead. 90, 100 miles overhead, something like that.
Oh, is that
But
right?
the moon's low Earth orbit is not really that far. It's just it's called low Earth orbit for a reason. It's
Good point.
it's close. I mean, you can see the space shuttle. You can see the reflections off the shuttle as it goes over it. I mean, no, not the shuttle, the space station as it goes over at night. Um,
Okay,
and
sorry. Say that
even
again.
during the day, you know where to look.
Say
Hmm?
it again. You can see shadows from the space
No,
station.
no, you can see reflections off of it. I mean, you can see it
Oh,
at night if you know where to stand and where to look. You can see, a little bright light going overhead as the
I
sun
got you.
reflects
Thank
off.
you.
And also during the day, if you know where to look, you could see it. You know,
It would look like some other satellite, maybe to an untrained eye that's not a
yeah, just some little speck.
astrophysicist
But I mean, the moon is a whole different. I
level.
mean, it's a whole other order of magnitude, or
So
more.
remind us of the distances again. The space station is 100 miles off the
Yeah,
surface of the Earth, and the
yeah,
moon is 250,000 miles. That's awesome. That is
yeah.
awesome.
Totally different. From out there, if you're in the space station, you look down, and the Earth occupies like half your field of vision, right? But if you're on the moon, you can hold your thumb up and block the Earth entirely.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? You're so far away that the Earth
Yes.
is just so small. You
Squishing
can
your hand.
almost cover the Earth entirely with your thumb when you hold it out in front of you.
So this is pretty great news that we're going to get back to the moon.
And
This
it looks like the Apollo. Have you seen the thing?
Well, I was going
I
to
mean,
just recently, because the news has now started covering, they moved this rocket, Artemis 1, which is going to be a test flight, to the launch pad, and whatever amount of time it took. If people haven't watched YouTube videos or on this yet, it's worth it. Go over to YouTube, stop by the Vote Common Good channel, subscribe, and then look up Artemis 1. And they're moving this gigantic rocket.
yeah,
Like this thing is, I've
it's
lost the
350
number,
feet high.
350, like skyscraper tall. So,
Yeah,
I don't know, go to New York, look up at the Empire State Building, and the thing is that big, and they're going to shoot it to the moon.
it's
How big was Apollo 1 or the other Apollo rockets?
the Apollo rockets. I think were like maybe 30 or 40 feet higher than this one, but it's the same order of magnitude, and it looks like it has the same basic shape as the old Apollo ones, although it's much higher tech and it's much more powerful than the Apollo, Saturn fives were. Much more powerful than that. A little smaller, but the whole thing definitely evokes, the Apollo mission. If you just look at it, you think, yeah,
Totally.
that slow little crawler that takes them out there took like 10 hours to go 4 miles, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like rush hour traffic in LA. That thing was just creeping along. Uh why is it so? I feel like there's some things about it that I've read and watched, and they're not really clear to me. It has massive amounts of rockets and boosters on it, that seem much more powerful than what there was in 1969, 1972. Why is that? Are we shooting this capsule? It sounded like the capsule was going to go around the moon. Is that what the others did as well? Do they always go around the moon, or is that why
Yeah,
there's such?
before they landed anybody on the moon, they just did a few shots. It was Apollo 11, right, that finally landed on the moon. So there was lots of
Oh,
Apollos before that, and the earliest ones were simply they just orbited the moon. Just they took it step by step. Um, but one of the reasons that it is so much more powerful is as I understand it from what I've seen of the pictures, the lander itself, the thing that actually lands on the moon, is much larger. It's not just this little bitty, this small compartment that two people can barely fit in. It's not that. It's much bigger than that.
are they
And
sending more than two people? Do you know? Is that the plan? Is that sending like a whole team up
I
there
don't
in
know
this
how
one?
many people there. I don't know. I imagine so that they're going to send more than two. I don't know what that long term goal is. I don't know. I'm sure it's out there. I'm sure I could find it, but I haven't
So the
read it.
imagination that they're going to send some people up and start, I don't know, sort of, uh, setting up shop on the moon, um, is just mind bending to me. They're going to just like be able to send payload after payload of equipment
They're
up
going
to
to
the
have to
moon
if they're going
and
to do
then
what they do.
have screw guns and ratchets and be assembling in Rector set style
Yeah, in low gravity. Yeah,
a
uh,
livable space.
yeah,
When
and
people are in the space station, they don't have to, the space station itself is pressurized and they can just move around in there without oxygen on, like somehow, which again, I don't understand how they're getting oxygen in the space station. Let's just start there. That blows my mind.
the
Somehow
same
they
way you
get,
get oxygen when you're underwater. They have tanks that pump it out.
they just have gigantic tanks connected to
Compressed
the,
oxygen, just filtering it. You know, just filters it. You know, it slowly leaks out, but they filter it. You know,
but when it's
just like they
gone,
do.
they're not getting any new oxygen up there, right? Like they have to keep bringing it up in containers.
Right, right. So they've got a compressed oxygen tank there that they use for the source of it, but they cycle it through just like in your house. Your air is always being circulated.
Yeah, well, my both my parents toward the end of their lives, they were on oxygen, and we had to get these tanks, and they were really unnerving to be moving around, and you had to watch the amount that was in them and carry them in your house all the time. That's how they're
Yeah,
that's how they
no,
keep
no, no, no,
people.
no, no. What I mean is that the space station has a oxygen source. There's a large tank of compressed oxygen.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So at some point they fly a new one up when that one's running short on
I
oxygen.
suppose so. Yeah.
Okay. The logistics around like people living on the moon for a long period of time and having just keep oxygen available. Do you think are they planning to build something on the moon as far as you've paid attention or heard
I'm
where
sure that's in
people
the long term. I'm sure that's in the long term.
they can take their
Long.
helmets off or personal oxygen tanks and just have like in the space station oxygen filled areas up on the moon?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
my gosh. I mean, this I know a lot of people don't think this stuff is cool. It blows my mind the level of project that human beings are willing to go to on this explorer spirit is just it's the best. It is really
It is believable, and you're right. It does take a lot. Just simply existing on the moon requires a lot of logistics.
a few years ago. I feel like we talked about one of the things that the Chinese lunar exploration was doing, and they landed something on the backside of the moon,
Hmm.
which was a big accomplishment.
Yeah,
It,
right, right. You
can you
could
remind me
communicate,
of that and
right?
what that has what that did to the U.S. imagination about hey we better get serious about our own lunar.
Yeah. And all of this is frankly behind all of this is competition with China. That's really, I think, what's
Yeah.
kind of like competition with the Soviets drove us back in the '60s. I think it's competition with China at this point that is really is what's lighting the fire underneath all this. For good or ill, that's basically what it comes down to.
Do you feel like that is because of the just the story that it tells to the American people, or do you feel
Yeah,
like it's
the
no?
world.
There's industry that we're gonna lunar industry coming in the next 50 to 100 years, and we need to be like
We
not
need to
just
be.
putting a flag and footprints on the moon, but we need to have a physical presence there.
Yeah,
Like, are they going to
yeah.
mine things out of the moon? Are they going to be digging
Not
up
only.
lunar rocks, or is there something under the surface there on the moon that we want, or is
Well,
this
they are
just all?
talking about there are certain, I think, elements they're looking at mining, and they may not need to, not everything that they need on the moon has to come from Earth. I think a lot of it can come from up there.
Good Lord, it's really something.
I
Hey,
know it's like Minecraft or something.
just I, we've talked a lot of times, so I won't spend too much time on it. But the people who don't believe that we've been to the moon don't think this is how the cosmos is structured. Yeah, I have a little empathy for why they might just have their minds bent to the point they're like, this cannot be possible. How in the world would we do this? Remind us about why the moon is so cool. Because sure, you're a big Saturn guy, and Saturn's your is that right? Saturn's one of your
The
more favorite.
blatantly superior planet.
It's the
That's what I
superior
call it.
planet. The moon's not a planet.
Late.
but remind
the
us about how
blade.
cool the moon is.
Oh, well, there's a lot of things to like about the moon. A lot of things. One is that it's as big as it is. Very no other, like compared to the Earth, it's like 1/4 its diameter, which makes it a real oddball in the solar system.
Hmm.
No other planet has a moon that's nearly that big compared to itself. So it's really large, which of course affects the tides. It affects certainly it slows the Earth down. Remember, we were talking a couple of weeks ago about how the Earth is how
Yes.
the days are getting longer. That's true. But also it has probably had something to do with the evolution of life on Earth as well. Probably it's not clear that life could have evolved the way it did
Hmm.
without them. So we have a lot to thank for the moon, but also it's just plain beautiful. I mean,
It is.
there's, I mean, it's just it gets your it gets your imagination going.
I mean, from my mid 50s, late 50s wife to our 6-year-old grandson and 2.5-year-old grandson, when that moon shows up, especially during the day, people interrupt their conversations and point up and go, "There's the moon."
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
still seen it your whole life, whether it's 2 years or 6 years or 56 years. I've been
And
looking up.
one of my earliest memories is in kindergarten, out on the playground, just up the road here, actually.
Huh,
Looking up at like the middle of the day and seeing the moon up there, and just that made a deep impression on me. It's the first time that I remember really realizing that you could see it during the day. And I just remember standing there staring at it, like
yes,
wow. It was
yes,
over right overhead. I was just like
right overhead.
just
No,
staring there. It's beautiful.
yeah, absolutely. That is that's part of the power of the whole thing. And so I think NASA going to the moon is just the best. I think this is I hope people get excited about it, and not just the technology of the rockets, even though it feels like the layout that NASA is doing right now, like news stories and everything is like, hey, let's start with the rockets because they're cool
Yeah,
and maybe people get excited about the rocket. But then ultimately, this idea that in, I don't know, 2023 or 2024, people are going to strap into a capsule on the top of a rocket and fly up there and get out again.
yeah, yeah. I think it'll be 25, but soon,
25.
right around the corner.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Soonest. I mean, Trump could be president again by then. But anyway, we won't go to such darkness. Um,
No,
hey,
it'll be. I think even the most. I think even the most. Maybe not the most, but a lot of people who simply don't really care about it right now. When that happens, I think they'll be amazed. I think they'll be lost in wonder for at least 20 seconds. Just
at
like
least
what
a
I mean. Just
TikTok video length of time. Yeah. Right.
yeah, right, exactly.
Um,
It'll affect everybody, in a I think in a positive way.
um, I was gonna. Well, does the moon spin?
That's the
It's
question. Yes, it does, but the same side always faces us. This takes a little bit of. I wish I had a. I wish I could. I don't really have it set up back here. I wish I could do a drawing to explain this. But basically, it rotates on its axis. It rotates once in the same amount of time it revolves around the Earth once.
talking to you about this stuff is I have the same experience that I love as when I have wasabi. That little paste stuff that you have at Asian, where it kind of snaps your head back and kind of burns in your nose, and you feel it sort of hurts, but you think, oh man, that was great. Let's do that again. All right. So is there some physics reason that it's rotating and
It's
spinning?
called synchronous rotation, and it is super common in the solar system. It is super common, and there's a physical mechanism that makes this happen over time. Eventually, over time, it happens. And it didn't used to be this way, a billion years ago or so, maybe 2 billion years ago. But over time, things settle down into that pattern. Yeah. So
What?
all these moons of like Jupiter and Saturn and Uranus and so forth, virtually all of them. There are a couple of exceptions, but virtually all of them are in synchronous rotation, just like the moon.
What causes that synchronous rotation? Like why a billion years ago was it non-synchronous and now it's found its rhythm?
The thing that drives it is they're called tidal forces, Tidal.
Okay.
Tidal forces, and the fundamental idea behind a tidal force is this: the Earth pulls more strongly on the near face of the moon than it does on the rear, the back of the moon, because the front of the moon is closer to the Earth, so the gravitational force is stronger there than it is on the back of the moon.
Yep.
That's fundamentally what drives it. If that were not so, and there's several dots you have to connect between that and synchronous rotation, but that's the fundamental reason. If that were not so, if the gravitational force of the Earth were the same on the front of the moon and the back of the moon, this wouldn't happen.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess as much as my little brain can comprehend that, because the moon is in the way of the back of the moon, so the gravitational pull is that why it's stronger
Well,
on
it's further away.
further away?
The back further away from the Earth than the front of it is, and the gravitational force gets weaker the further you are away from a thing.
Oh, just the distance.
It's just the distance. It's not the fact that gravity travels right through matter. So it's not the fact that the stuff of the moon is between the back of the
helpful.
moon.
Okay.
It's simply the fact that the back of the moon is further away from the Earth than the front of the moon is.
So I guess if the moon wasn't quite as big, the tidal force would be less.
That's correct.
Smaller moons might.
Right. And that's also what tears comets apart. Like a comet struck Jupiter back in 94 or 96, and we watched it come and we saw it break up, but the comet was broken up because of that same reason.
Because
that's why
the gravitational force on the front.
The front of the comet was being pulled more strongly towards Jupiter than the back of it was. So the effect was basically that you're taking the comet and stretching it, and it just breaks up into 1,000 pieces.
Huh. And sort of saved Jupiter. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. And Jupiter's gravity is much stronger than Earth. That's also why it broke up so much. But
so for all of human time, people have been seeing the same face of the moon, and everywhere
it does wobble a little bit. It does do a little thing. So this is the face of the moon here.
Yep.
It does kind of do a little back and forth wobble like that. So we probably actually see about like 55% of the moon's surface from the Earth.
I see. Okay. So it's not just a flat coin like representation.
Right. It wobbles back and forth a little bit. Exactly. So we do see a little bit around the eastern and western edges of the moon.
How often does that wobble happen? What kind of time frame is that wobble on?
Gosh, I don't know what the period of that is.
Like, is it years? Is it days?
No, weeks? I don't think it's years. No, I think it's like, my guess, and this is just a guess, is days to weeks.
We can't
days to a few weeks.
We can't point a telescope at the moon and set like a time lapse over a month, because the moon is moving around, and sometimes we don't even see the moon from any given place on the Earth, right?
That's right. You can't do it from one particular location, but you can take a series of pictures taken from telescopes around the world and get, and sort of put the videos together. Huh. And there are videos on if you Google moon libration, Libration, libration video, okay, you'll see videos of the moon doing that.
Really?
That's called libration. Yeah.
Libration. That's pretty cool.
And also the moon's orbit is elliptical, so as it wobbles back and forth, sometimes it's bigger, sometimes it's smaller. You also see it doing as the moon gets closer to us and further away, because its orbit is not circular, it's elliptical, so sometimes it's further away. So you also see the moon get larger and smaller over time,
When
periodically.
it's in that elliptical pattern, it gets closer and further away. Is it always closer and further away relative to the same point on Earth, or does
No,
that distance away change?
it
Every
changes,
Lots of
precesses
different
that.
places on the Earth get a glimpse of the closer moon. When the
Yeah,
moon looks bigger and smaller, is that what's happening? Is that what we're seeing? Is that why it's
yeah,
bigger in the sky and smaller?
yeah, yeah. It's just because it's further or closer.
And aren't we in a moment right now where one of the specially named moon cycles is happening? Isn't there some kind of a moon event happening now-ish?
Well, there was one last week.
Oh,
There was a full moon, and it happened to be when it was at full. It happened to be close to its closest point to us, so they call it a supermoon. That's what the PR people do. They call it a supermoon when it's like 4% bigger than normal. But you
it,
can't tell with your eye really so much.
oh, you can.
You know.
It's not like when because sometimes, man, you look out and that moon just looks other colors and gigantic and low. Um, it's really, and of course, all of the location of the moon, the closeness of it, the perceived size of the moon that you're seeing, that's all predictable, right? I mean,
Oh yeah,
somebody who knows lunar patterns could just be like, on August 18th, 2029, we know right where what you're going to see looking at the moon. There's no
yeah.
mystery left there.
No, not with that. You can download free software, planetarium software on the internet called
On your phone.
Stellarium,
Yeah.
and on your phone, and it'll tell you. You can go to August 17th, 2074, and it'll tell you where the moon will be and what its illumination will be, what phase it'll be, how close to the Earth it'll be.
And
Yeah.
and it seems like that's part of, just to dwell on the moon for a minute here, that feels like it's part of why the moon is felt so common. Is that the thing we talked about where little kids and adults alike look up and see the moon and are just kind of paused for a moment, like catching a rainbow.
Yeah.
Um, but it just feels like, oh, we got the moon figured out. We've got the moon sort of nailed. But not really, because we only see one side of it, right? This whole back side of the moon is unknown to us, generally
Well, we've
speaking,
mapped
right?
it out. We've mapped it out. It's pretty detailed. We know what's back there, but we haven't seen it with our own eyes.
Why do we know it's
It's
back there then?
we put
Oh, I see.
satellites there and gotten really detailed pictures and so forth, and we know what's back there, but we just can't see it with our eyes.
Then why China? Why was it such a big deal that China got to the backside of the moon or shot a rocket back there or something? That was a big story that kind of
Well,
fueled.
communications I think are a little difficult because
Oh, that's what it was.
radio waves don't make it. I mean, they make it a little. The radio waves will make it through the walls of your house, but they won't make it through the moon. So they had to
That's right.
communications is more difficult.
Oh, that's some of what they're going to build, aren't they? Going to build some kind of a
Oh yeah,
relay station on that moon to.
they'll put some permanent satellites up around the moon, just like we have them around the Earth, and those will be communication satellites. If they might already have them, I don't know.
Hey, when you take that 15-foot telescope of yours with its 30-inch lens diameter and point it at the moon, do you do that? And if so, what do you see that is so
See,
different than?
first you need to put like sunglasses on, basically a filter on the thing
Okay.
because it's so bright. But you can see great detail of the craters and so forth.
Does it look like, I don't know, northern New Mexico? Like when I go to drive through parts of New Mexico, I'm like, this looks like the moon in my
It
imagination.
looks, you fly
Or is
over,
it?
Arizona, Death Valley, places like that. It does look kind of like that. Although I always think of Mars when I fly over that part of the country.
Hmm.
It is, desolate like that. Yeah.
Does that capture students' attentions when I don't know, maybe you wait for people to be juniors in the astrophysics program before you let them look through the telescope, but at
No,
whatever
no, no.
point.
We have 8 open houses a year during the academic year. We have 8, and so we let people come
Say,
in from the
go ahead and
neighborhood
say it.
around.
Yeah, the regular people like us
Yeah.
come up and look at it. when people see the moon close through that telescope, does it make their heart sing? Does it
Yeah,
move
it
their...
does that. And the two things that really get people's attention are the moon and Jupiter to a good extent, but Saturn is the thing that really knocks them out because they're like, is that really it? Like, is that, you know, they can't believe that they're actually seeing the real thing. That's not just a picture in a book.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, we're faking out. We have a little plastic Saturn hanging in the telescope there. That's all.
Well, it's
That's all.
because you got
That's
that
not really.
planetarium over there where you're just projecting, you know, a digital version up on it there. They're
Yeah,
not
right.
sure when
You
you're
don't know when they see the rings of Saturn. And that's true with smaller telescopes too. It doesn't matter what size the telescope. First time anybody sees the rings of Saturn, if they're at all tuned in to like their sense of wonder at all, they will exclaim, I just cannot believe that's really it."
Well, shamefully again that I've never done such a thing. I tried to do it a couple weeks ago in Chicago at someone's house, and it was really cloudy and we couldn't do it. And then I went to bed, and then later that night the skies cleared and everyone got to see it. But someday I will see it, and maybe it'll be at that telescope there outside of Decatur.
Oh, that would
Hey,
be phenomenal to have you come visit here.
really?
That'd
All
be.
right. Well, I got nothing else to do. I might as well come do that. Hey, Paul, what are you teaching in the fall? When does school start, and what are the fine students of Agnes Scott College going to
We
experience
start
with
on Wednesday.
next week?
Yeah, and I got two classes. One of them I have two sections of, but two subjects. One is basically, intro to physics for pre-med students. It's just, welcome to physics 101 basically. For pre-meds, and then I teach an upper level physics course for the physics majors, physics and astronomy majors, and I'm teaching a class called thermal physics, which is thermodynamics is another name for it. It's a standard class that every physics major in the whole universe has to take. Entropy. You've heard about the second law of thermodynamics and
I was going to
entropy.
say, I mean, whoever's the PR company behind the second law of thermodynamics, they have done their job of making sure that everybody knows that one phrase. Maybe
Well, we
people
spend
can
a lot of
describe
time
what
on.
it. It's a well-known physics thing. It's the second law of thermodynamics. You can't do
Yeah.
such and such.
I mean, are you? I mean, you actually do know. I mean, are you being facetious or because you've heard of it, right? Because you've heard of entropy, right?
Okay, embarrassingly, I think if you described what the second law of thermodynamics is, I would say, yeah, I knew that reality. Could I,
Well,
if you just said write a description of the second law of thermodynamics, if I started with the description, maybe I could put the title on it. If I started with the title, I don't think I could put the description on it.
okay.
Is that a fair
I can
confession?
put it very simply, and the reason why I thought you might know about it is because it's kind of, as far as physics things go, it's kind of got a popular interpretation. Second law of thermodynamics says that disorder always increases in the universe.
Okay. Yeah.
Entropy is a measure of disorder, of randomness. And the second law of thermodynamics says that thing we call entropy, which measures randomness and disorder, always increases. In other words, things get messier, things get worse. So you can see how that would sort of be
Yes.
relatable.
I thought
To
things
me.
were also slowing down and becoming less fast. No, things aren't. Isn't there one of those laws that as things
No.
are no, things are just getting crazier in the
Well, well,
physics
well,
world?
well, 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 the universe is getting cooler, which is related
Okay.
to entropy, but maybe that's, I don't know if that's what you're thinking about or not. But the Earth is
Yeah.
definitely spinning more slowly every century.
Yeah, I can really feel it as I get older. It's really slowing
Yeah,
down. Well,
yeah.
Paul, thank you, man, and congratulations on this new thing. And
Thank you.
we will come and do a whole deal from that observatory and that
That'd
telescope.
be awesome for us to do it from here together. That'd be great.
And thanks for
If you
helping
ever
us
get down to
look up at the
ever,
sky, if even in our minds. And I don't know, maybe we can go to the moon someday.
that'd be awesome. You ever come down to ATL and we'll do it.
All right, buddy. Hey, thanks everybody for being a part of the podcast. We will share us with your friends if you're not already over on our Facebook pages, or if you're only on our Facebook pages rather, head over to YouTube as well and share it from there. It's a perfect place to share all this stuff. So thanks
That's right.
for being a part of this, and love one another and look at the moon.